Hi, welcome to a very, very, very special edition of PreSonus Live. I'm Rick Knockvey.
And I'm Dominic Bazile.
And we are really proud of introducing today the latest and greatest version of Studio One, version 3.2. So this is unlike a regular kind of software update. You know, it's not just a couple of bug fixes, maybe a couple of features. This is actually an update that's actually years in the making. How did we come up with this particular update?
Sure. We got feedback over about a 2-year period from an advisory panel consisting of leading professionals as well as everyday users. We wanted to really see what kind of workflows people are using, not only how we can enhance it in Studio One, but get some of those workflows from other software that they may be using.
Yeah, so that is actually really important because of the fact that we know that people use multiple softwares, and there's some things that are good about this software, things that are good about this software. Right. Our goal is to create the best workflow for our customers.
Definitely.
So, hey, without further ado, introducing Studio One version 3.2. Check it out.
PreSonus raises the bar again with Studio One 3.2, a free update for Studio One 3 that adds new dimensions to your mix environment with professional tools and workflow enhancements demanded by the music production community. Studio One version 3.2 turns the industry on its ear by introducing revolutionary new mix engine effects. Mix engine effects process every channel routed through a bus, both individually at the source and at their summing point, fundamentally altering your mix in ways that have never before been possible in a DAW. Console Shaper, our first mix engine effect, uses state space modeling to quickly turn Studio One's award-winning 64-bit engine into an analog console with complete control over drive, noise, and true crosstalk across multiple channels. Console emulation is only the beginning. Stay tuned for more plugins from PreSonus, Slate Digital, and other developers in the coming months. Now, remote control multiple tracks with VCA faders while still retaining independent channel control for fine-tuning. VCA faders link with folder tracks, keeping everything organized. And you can save time by automatically creating automation tracks for every FX, bus, or VCA channel. In terms of speed, version 3.2 takes the fastest DAW around and makes it even faster. Arrow Tool has always been multifunction and context-based, but now it's smarter by transforming into the Range Tool when appropriate. Arrow and Range Tools provide alternative and faster comping methods, and quick range editing makes precise micro-edits of volume automation a snap. Studio One speed enhancements keep coming with new tab to transient capabilities, faster crossfade editing, new quick zoom shortcuts, and the ability to drag and drop instrument parts and immediately bounce to audio. New transport options are also easily accessible, and you can quickly make output effects adjustments. Stay focused with new play start marker and instant looping of selections when editing. Of course, Studio One 3.2 continues expanding its hardware-software integration, making it the heart of your studio. For example, Studio One Remote natively supports iPad Pro and Windows tablets, including Surface and Surface Pro, freeing you from your desk while tracking and mixing. Melodyne 4 Essential is not just for vocals anymore, allowing you to transpose and quantize polyphonic, harmonic instruments, and it's vastly improved with better tempo detection, mapping, and extraction. Plus, you can create tempo tracks from any reference audio, all with Studio One's per-track ARA integration and faster than real-time rendering that sets the standard for the industry. Studio One 3.1 introduced tight hardware integration with the Studio 192 interface. Version 3.2 expands that to even more PreSonus hardware with preamp control for up to 64 inputs on Studio Live rack mixers, and also fat channel DSP processing for near zero latency recording on Studio Live RM mixers and AI consoles. Studio One 3.2 raises the bar again. Full versions, upgrades, and crossgrades available now.
I'm Swedish. I moved to London in about 10 years ago. I'm mainly a mixing engineer, but sometimes I do productions as well. I used to work in Metropolis Studios, where I worked with Lady Gaga and Paul McCartney and people like that. I've been in Pro Tools since version 5, which is it 20 years now? Yeah. So I haven't used anything else really. I've tried loads, I've tried them all, but never really been comfortable in anything else than Pro Tools until now then. I was looking for a new program to do production in, basically, because as we know, Pro Tools is not really good with virtual instruments. It's had loads of problems with MIDI. It's just not tight enough, really. So I thought I'd give Studio One a go and was blown away about the tightness of it and the speed and everything, really. It got the new features that I need. Smart Tool, the trim automation tool that wasn't there before. That's something I really, really needed for doing mixing, coming from Pro Tools again. I'm so excited about the console shape as well. I haven't actually done a full mix with it yet, but I'm just dying to do it because it sounds really, really good for my testing so far. And yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Studio One 3.2, I will probably start doing all my mixing in Studio One, yeah, definitely. Because now the features are there. My main one was the trim automation tool. Because I do that a lot, trim sections up and down all the way, you know, in the arrangement. And that was a little bit hard before, but now it's amazing. I would definitely recommend it. I think the Studio One have the best of all DAWs now. It's like a chameleon. It has everything in there. Best things from Logic, best things from Pro Tools, best thing from Ableton. It's all like in one program. And that's why I love it. I can finally leave Pro Tools behind, basically.
Wow, that was pretty cool, huh?
Pretty cool, yeah.
Yes,
Awesome.
indeed. Yeah. So, hey, before we go any further, we want to remind you guys of some amazing prizes we're
Prizes
giving away.
are good.
So the cool thing about these prizes, there's 2 of them that you don't even have to do anything for. You're already signed up just for watching the webcast.
Thank
but
you.
You have to watch all the way through to the very end to make sure that you won.
Right.
Okay, so the first prize is going to be a PreSonus
RM16.
RM16
Yes.
AI, which we're going to talk about a little bit later, because not only is today cool for Studio One with version 3.2, but we're also updating all of the RM mixers and the new Studio Live mixers to have some additional functionality. So the RM16 AI is the first prize. The second prize is a Twitter prize. So for those of you with Twitter, you're going to have to tweet this out. But you know, one lucky person is going to win a Skype lunch with Justin Spence.
Awesome.
So how does that work?
Wow.
We're going to buy you lunch, and we're going to buy Justin lunch, and you guys are going to get to Skype and watch each other eat lunch. Okay?
He's
How
such
cool
an
is
awesome
that?
guy. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So, and all you have to do to win the Skype lunch with Justin is you have to tweet hashtag S132 and just copy and paste the link right at the top of your URL there. Copy and paste that into Twitter and hashtag S132, and you too could win lunch with the man.
Justin Spence, yes.
Yes, that's exciting.
That's pretty good.
And then the third prize that we're giving away is a pair of the brand new Aris 44
E44s, MTM monitors, yeah.
Yes, which we are using today in the studio, which are quite awesome and killer. So, and again, for those, you don't have to do anything. You just, you know, hang with us for the rest of the webcast. Okay, so let's talk about some of these new features.
Sure.
One of the coolest new features in Studio One 3.2 is the addition of mix engine effects.
Yes, yes.
So mix engine effects are not only just a new plugin or something like that. They're actually a new type of plugin
Yes.
that our amazing guys in Hamburg have created. And the way that a mix engine effect works is that it not only affects you know, the things like that are in a particular bus.
Yeah.
Okay, but it actually affects every channel in that bus. So
That's huge.
it's huge, and yeah,
Who else does that? Like in one little plugin format?
yeah. So you know, and so let me just give you kind of a little idea of sort of what we're talking about. So one of the things that's so important about Studio One is the sound of the mix engine, and people love the sound of Studio One. But what you're actually doing when you insert a mix engine effect on a bus is you're actually getting rid of Studio One's mix engine and putting in the mix engine of an analog console.
Yes.
Okay, so you're actually replacing the mix engine with the new mix engine. And so the very first plugin that we've created that comes free with the update of version 3.2 is called Console Shaper. And the cool thing about Console Shaper is that, of course, what we've done is our guys have modeled using state space modeling.
Yes.
Modeled different vintage analog consoles, not just kind of their overall tonality, but down to the schematic level. And we've created a way for you to be able to run whatever channels that are in that bus through this analog console and have some different parameter controls. And this is the first of many different plugins that are going to come out. Now, not only will we develop additional mix engine effects plugins, but we also have third-party companies, some of our partners in the industry. In fact, you're going to hear from Steven Slate in a little while about some new plugins that they're working on. Who are some of the other guys that are working on?
Some of the other guys, Soft Tubes, going to develop some, as well as Acoustica Audio.
So this is huge, you guys, because here's the beauty of this is that you're going to have different types of mix engine effects available from different manufacturers, and you can run your drums through one analog console and run your vocals through a completely different analog console. And the beauty of this is that all of the channels within a bus, they're all interrelated.
That's correct. That's correct. They're going to, dynamically, relate to each other with crosstalk. All of those nuances of an analog console, as well as the way they affect or sum into the bus that you have your mix effects engine on.
Right on. So let's take a look at a session. So why don't you play a little bit of this and tell us about what's happening in this session.
All right, so here's a session. We have some drums in it, as well as some other instruments, guitars, and such. So let's just play a little bit. All right, so we're going to focus on the drums. So let's solo the drum bus here. All right, here's our drum bus. Usual suspects, kick, snare, that sort of thing. All right. So in every bus of Studio One, and starting with 3.2, you're going to have this guy up here at the top of your inserts called the mix effects. And you'll see it as well on your master bus as well. And once you click the drop down, you'll see a list of all of your mix engine effects plugins. So of course, the first one we developed is the Console Shaper. I'm not going to put it on the master. I'm going to put it on the drum bus. So let's enable that. All right. You probably heard a little jump in the audio, but you also heard a little, change in the nuances there as well. So right now we have some different parameters here. We'll start with drive. So drive is going to actually affect how each of the channels going into that bus is driving into the bus itself.
Right, so it's actually increasing probably harmonic distortion and, kind of allows you to get a little bit of edge and put a little hair on whatever.
Definitely. All of those things that you expect out of an analog console when you increase the drive on a channel, that's what's going to happen there. Also, we give you the option of adding noise.
Oh, yeah. That's so cool.
That's kind of crazy.
So we spent like 50 years developing analog consoles, trying to figure out how to get noise out of the analog console. Now in 2016, we're going to give you the ability to put noise back into your recordings, right? So let's stop the transport for a second. And now with the noise not engaged, you can see, of course, there's no noise, and you can look at the meters in the individual drum channels.
All right, so here are our individual channels right here, and then here's our bus. All right, and we're going to enable noise now. And instantly you kind of see there's some signal there. There's something there. And of course, if we jacked up the volume, we'd probably hear some noise there. But that's all part of the vibiness of an analog console, is that you have some level of noise in there.
That's right.
And of course, you can add and subtract to taste the amount of noise there. Of course, it's going to aggregate as you add more channels to a bus and noise. So you don't want to go too far with it because then you'll have a very noisy mix, unless that's what you want.
Hey,
You know?
you can do it. We give you the tools to destroy your mix if you choose to do so.
So also we give you the option for crosstalk.
Okay, so what is crosstalk exactly?
Crosstalk in the analog console is a signal bleeding over from one channel to the next, basically. And that's going to be across the entire console.
Okay.
So you're going to have some level of that in an analog console.
All analog consoles have crosstalk.
Right.
To some degree, right?
And we give you the option of dialing that in, how much crosstalk you actually want. Just as an example, let's solo our snare here. And this is our snare track. We're going to play it.
So it's really clean.
Really clean. You don't hear any of the other, this is a drum kit tracked together. So typically when you have multiple mics, you're going to get some other tracks bleeding over or whatever. But in an analog console, even after you've isolated a track, you're going to get some bleed. So let's increase the crosstalk here.
Oh yeah, I hear it.
So that's 100%, and you can basically hear the whole kit. And that's really just all of the channels.
That's very extreme.
That's very extreme. So you want to use this with taste, or to your liking, really.
Right.
Your taste, because everybody's taste is different, right? So crosstalk, yeah. So that's just one of the things that kind of adds that extra level of depth to a mix when you're using an analog console, and you have it now in 3.2.
So I think the thing that's really cool and kind of the big takeaway with regards to the Console Shaper plugin and Mix Engine Effects is that, you may not want the exact same sound on different buses. So for example, you might want, I was talking to one of the producers that has been part of our advisory group, and he was one of the beta testers in 3.2, and he said, he threw the Console Shaper on the master bus, and it was doing something cool to the whole mix, but he found that he was losing a little bit of focus with the bass guitar. So what he decided to do then is put different instances of Console Shaper on different buses. He took the bass guitar completely out of all of the buses, put it by itself. So it's not going through any analog console emulation. It's just going through the regular summing engine. But then he had the ability of having, basically you have your vocals running through a different console than you have your drums. And this is going to even get way cooler once we get third-party guys involved, because
it's going to be so huge having different flavors of an analog console on different buses in your mix.
Right.
So you can affect your drums differently from your vocals or your guitars and that sort of thing.
And PreSonus Software also is planning to develop more plugins for this new Mix Engine Effect platform. So it's going to be very, very cool. So let's talk about another new feature in version 3.2, and that is VCA faders. So
yes.
VCA faders is something that people have been asking for a long time. First of all, what is a VCA fader exactly?
A VCA fader on the large format console is going to be a control fader, basically. It's controlling a group of faders in your mix. So you may have tons of, channels or faders for your drums. You only have 10 fingers, so either you get a buddy to actually help you manage that, or you use a VCA fader. Okay. So you can use that VCA fader to control all of the faders for that particular drum group, or it could be any type of group in your mix.
Okay.
So we've added that to Studio One to make mixing very easy, much more manageable, and give you that flexibility without having to use buses all the time, or even grouping channels as well.
So basically, the big difference between a VCA fader and grouping a bunch of channels together in a bus is that we're not actually summing anything with a VCA fader. So why don't you give us an example? Let's say here on our drums, let's create a VCA fader.
All right. So here are our drums, and I'm just going to select them all. But it could be any combination. It could be maybe cymbals. All right, so I've selected only the cymbals here. And just by right-clicking, we're going to choose Add VCA for selected channels. And there we have it. We have a red fader cap, which indicates our VCA channel. It's labeled VCA1. And then if you look at the channels we previously had selected, you'll see that each one has a label that it's being controlled by VCA1.
And you can change the name or whatever.
And you can change the name. So you still have individual control of each of those channels for that VCA fader group, but now that VCA fader is going to control all of those with relative positioning, between each one. So they're going to keep their relative levels, to each other.
But they're not actually
but you're moving them all
they're not
together.
grouped together.
They're not grouped together.
You can actually have individual control.
You still have individual control, and unlike grouping tracks or channels together, you can still individually edit them in your arrangement.
That's
That's
awesome.
kind of one of the good sides or flexibilities of using the VCA fader.
I noticed also when you created that VCA fader, it also created an automation lane automatically.
Right. So that's a new option in Studio One 3.2. You can now have the option to automatically add a automation lane for your buses, your effects buses, as well as now your VCA faders. So we have greater parity between the arrangement view and the mixer.
That's pretty amazing.
Yes.
All
Just
right.
increasing that workflow. So yeah, VCA faders. You could also have a VCA of a VCA. So you have multiple VCAs controlling different groups in your mix, and now you can have one VCA that will control all of those VCAs. So nested VCAs,
That's really
making your mix job so much easier now in Studio One.
This is such a huge thing, especially when you start talking about doing sessions that have 128 tracks. Or,
Definitely.
And this is actually becoming more and more common. I do a lot of mixing for people, and it's not uncommon for me to get 60 plus tracks, sometimes over 100 tracks. And now with the ability for us to have, we added folder tracks a while back, and being able to manage the arrangement with folder tracks, but now having the additional ability to manage your faders using VCA faders is really, really cool.
Right. So, for instance, we have a folded track for these drums, and before, and still now, you can add the option of choosing your drum bus right on your folder track. Well, now you also have the option of selecting your VCA fader right there on your folder track. So making it easier for you to access that VCA right from the arrangement and controlling all of your tracks that way.
Studio One
Right from a
3.2,
folder.
man, it's rocking.
Yeah, definitely.
It's rocking. So next we're going to watch a couple of videos. We're going to hear from one of our really good friends in the industry, Steven Slate, and he's going to talk about some of the things that they're working on with the Mix Engine effects.
Right.
We're also going to talk to a couple of producers that have recently switched over to Studio One. And then lastly, you're going to hear from an LA producer who was actually one of the guys that was involved in our advisory group, and he's going to give you a little demo of some of the new workflow enhancements to Studio One 3.2. So let's check it out.
Hey, this is Steven Slate, and I want to congratulate PreSonus on Studio One version 3.2. And I'm really excited and proud to announce that for the first time ever, Slate Digital will be implementing our virtual console technology directly in the Studio One Mixbus effects engine. This is the first time that we've ever incorporated our algorithms directly into a DAW. So we're really excited. Stay tuned for it, and happy mixing.
Paul Drew from DWB Music. Recently, I've just finished the Marcella Detroit album. I had a top 10 Billboard in the US last year with a band called Project 46. And do lots of work for Asian artists and all over the world, really. I was quite a heavy Pro Tools HD user, had a Pro Tools HDX rig. I did half the album, half the Marcella Detroit album in Pro Tools, and she actually works in Logic, so she was sending the files over anyway. So I was loading them into Pro Tools, and I just thought, well, let's just try something different. And then as soon as I used Studio One, there's no transition. It was just, and all of my key commands from Pro Tools just went straight over. There's a setting in Studio One, so you can load up your Pro Tools key commands, and it was just a simple, as if I was using Pro Tools, but with a much slicker engine. The speed of the workflow is second to none. For instance, if I wanted to tune a vocal in Pro Tools, maybe I'd bring up Melodyne, and then I'd record obviously the vocal inside of Melodyne. With Studio One, it's just one button. Melodyne pops up, and my vocal just it's all done. Well, the console effects. I was a massive fan of Heat in Pro Tools. So when I came over to Studio One, I really missed that. And now you've got that feature, which sounds absolutely amazing. So that for me is the biggest feature. And the VCAs, for instance, is something that we all used in Pro Tools. There wasn't actually in a lot of other DAWs. So, now it's in Studio One 3. It's just incredible. The Smart Tool was something we always used. I mean, everyone that uses Pro Tools uses a Smart Tool. And now you've actually got that. It's actually smarter than the Pro Tools one. Just by expanding the waveform, expanding the track height, you can actually choose all the different functions you need. So I've sold my HDX rig and just completely over with Studio One now, and completely happy. Well, you just got to try it. It's as soon as you try it, you'll switch. I've got no doubt about that.
Hi, I'm Aris Arcontis, and I'm a writer-producer in Los Angeles and owner of Archon Studios. I started using Studio One about a year ago after being frustrated with using multiple DAWs for the production process, doing programming and MIDI in one and then transferring files to another one for mixing. So I was looking for one DAW in 2015 that would allow me to do everything. And although no DAW is perfect, as everybody knows, for my needs, Studio One came the closest to what I was looking for to be able to start and finish a project. So we started talking with Presonus about how we can improve workflow, specifically 3 key areas: navigation, automation, and comping. When it comes to navigation, what we did with a Smart Tool is combine the Range tool and the Arrow tool. From the bottom half, we got the Arrow tool. On the top half, we got the Range tool. This means, first and foremost, that you don't need to move up and down to this part to navigate through your session. You can just click anywhere right inside the waveform. So even if you're zoomed in here and you want to work on this part or start from right here, you don't have to be going up and down anymore. So navigating is instant. As you know, double-clicking with the Arrow tool brings forward the dedicated audio editor right here. Double-clicking with the Range tool on the top half automatically will split. And actually, this works great also on selections. So if you double-click, this becomes its own thing. Another thing we worked on was enhanced tab to transient with Shift as your anchor point. So you can just drop your cursor anywhere you want and then just tab, and by holding Shift, extend the range. And if you want to cut this again, just double click. That's it. It's done. Another thing we wanted to improve on is loop workflow. No need to set up loop markers or no need to loop to selection with key commands. With loop follow selection, any selection automatically will loop. The moment you want this loop to be over with, you just click and just navigate as normal. Again, tap to transient. Let's say I want this section. This is the section I want to work with. It just loops. And if I wanted to work on the whole region, since by clicking with the Arrow tool on the bottom half selects the whole region, automatically we're looping the whole thing. Another thing we worked on is the ability to separate the playback position from the edit selection point. What that means is, let's say I want to focus on this selection right here and I want to edit a specific part. Anywhere I drop my cursor, as you can see, it just plays from there. So let's say if I'm pressing play here and I want to move this selection, obviously in typical Studio One fashion, I can just shift the audio inside. If I was to press play, it will press play from that spot, but I want to hear it in context. I don't want to have to be clicking back all the time, starting my playhead position from here. So if you see up here where my mouse is, with the play start marker, I can separate my starting point with my selection point. So no matter where I am right now, the audio will play from over there. So I can be zoomed in, doing what I do here, and then when I want to hear it in context, all I need to do is just press play. When I'm done with this section, I can just remove it so it acts normal. And let's say I want to start from this section, just drop it back in again, and then focus and do whatever I need to do from that point. When that's done, I'm ready to move on. Automation is another feature we wanted to improve on. So for example, I want to automate the volume on this selection. Obviously with points in Studio One, I have a lot of flexibility on what I can do. But what we wanted to introduce is the bracket. This means that if I have a selection, let's say right here, I want to automatically be able to create automation points for this bracket. So as you can see here, I got my arrow tool here, becomes a range tool over here, and up here it will become automatically a bracket. So I can continue here, select another point, do something else, come here, do this. Now, if I select with the range tool this whole section can be used with the bracket. If I want to trim these points, all I need to do is just select them with the arrow tool. So instead of dragging with the range tool and creating a selection, I can just drag with the arrow tool, and as you can see, only the points are being selected. So then I can move or trim or do whatever I need to do. And with the key command, the shortcut with the ability to transform on the spot, the possibilities are truly endless. Another thing we can do is use tab to transient to select specific parts. Let's say this was a snare drum and I wanted to reduce the volume of it. So now tab to transient works perfectly in automation mode. And there you have it. Comping is another feature that we concentrated on. What we wanted to do is create a way to audition takes faster. So for example, we have the swipe capability here as usual, and before you would need to pretty much double click the regions. Now you can just, as you can see here, you can scroll through the different takes with a shortcut, which means that if I had 20 takes very, very quickly without having to click or scroll up and down, I can just audition them. What I am very excited about though is the ability to go through takes without even opening up the layers. And by that, what do I mean? Let's say I'm pressing play here and I realize that I want to change this section. All I need to do is double click, which now in 3.2 it becomes its own region. And from then on, I can just go through my takes to find the one I like. Select this part, double click. I may want a different ending. And again. And this, of course, reflects also to the layers on the bottom. I'm very excited to be working with PreSonus on this. They've been extremely receptive and open to suggestions and ideas. I believe this is just the beginning.
My name's Pete Buxton Martin. I've been working on a lot of projects this year, mainly a guy called Arrow Benjamin, who's amazing. He's kind of like a mixture between CeeLo Green and John Legend. And I've been working with him for about the past 2 years. This year, he signed a deal with Universal, which was really good. And he wrote a song with me with another artist called Marley Music, which made a shortlist for the Oscars this year. So it's been a tumultuous year, lots of work, but very, very, very good. For 20 years now, I've been using Pro Tools, and for me, it was a kind of scary prospect to move away from it because, you know, I've always had access to different doors that do different things. So, for instance, I really didn't like the sequencing Pro Tools. So I first started off in Logic, and then I moved to Machine, and I would constantly bounce files into Pro Tools as my mix door. Somebody said to me once, it was Dom who works with Teddy Riley. One of my best friends, he said to me, Pete, you gotta check out Studio One. When I tried Studio One out for the first time, I was a little bit skeptical because the thing is, different doors act different ways, and when I really spent probably not even a lot of time with it, I'd say about 3 hours, I just began to realize the immense power that you've got in this thing. I could never move away from Pro Tools because of this Audio Suite function. For those of you who don't know about Audio Suite, it's basically printing the reverb onto an audio piece. Say if you get a snare drum, you hit it and you print the reverb onto it. I could never move away from Pro Tools for that reason. Each clip in the audio field has a plug-in parameter where you could literally go, right, on this thing, say if there was a word like I love you, you could have I basically put a reverb onto that. Love, you could put a flanger. So it's just monstrous. And that opens up the doors to so many possibilities. Go to the plugin list, open the plugin list, suddenly there would be like a pictorial reference of your plugins. So no more scrolling through reams of like plugin lists. You just see the picture next door and it's amazing. It's aesthetically really beautiful. In my shit, if you come to it, you'll see I've always been a really great analog fan. I've got a SSL summing mixer, and I've been using that for a couple of years now. And really, I've seen the progression of DAWs and their kind of attempt to get that analog sound, with saturation effects, with distortion effects. And when I saw the new plugin in Studio One, I was totally blown away, man, because these guys have taken it further. They've understood that in a console, you're getting bleed. You're basically getting the sound of a snare bleeding through a kick drum. This is the first time I've seen these kind of things implemented into a plugin, which just blew my mind. I thought, whoa, this is next level stuff, And you can put a saturator on a like say a drum kit, and it doesn't do the same thing because it's more in-depth way of thinking about things, and the results are just tremendous. Studio One is an incredible platform because to me it's the best of every world out there. Every single door that you can work with, I think they've drawn inspiration from and created something totally new, So if you're a programmer, if you're a producer, if you're a mix engineer, these platforms are just on such a different level to any other door that I've worked with because it encompasses everything at the moment that you need, And to me, it's not one of those programs that has a bunch of legacy code written into it. When you work with it, it's so fresh, it's so fast, I'm really absolutely sold on it.
All right, we're back. So, hey, what did you think about?
I'm excited.
The new Aero tool
Yeah.
is pretty sick.
Love those enhancements. It really improves the workflow for me personally. Being able to have that variability between the different tools. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. And it was neat to hear how some of these guys are using Console Shaper and already in kind of getting, these are some of the guys that were beta testing with us the last couple of months. So next, hey, before we go any further, we want to remind you about the contest.
Prizes.
RM16 AI as well as a pair of Aris 44s. You don't have to do anything for that. You're already signed up. Just keep watching. We're going to announce those winners in a few minutes. And then also, for those of you...
Skype lunch with Justin, too.
Skype lunch with Justin is my favorite.
How can you forget that? You can't forget that.
Yes.
That's awesome. So tweet out hashtag S132 as well as share that link for this video broadcast, and that'll get you in for to win that lunch with Justin Spence.
Yes, the man. Okay, and next, let's go ahead and talk about another new enhancement to Studio One version 3.2, and this actually kind of goes hand in hand with an update that's come to Melodyne. Of course, if you're a professional user, you get Melodyne Essentials with Studio One, but Melodyne had a new update, and it kind of coincided time-wise very close to our update to 3.2. So we actually have some new integration that's very cool. So what's new with the new version of Melodyne?
Sure. So Melodyne 4 includes a lot of enhancements, but even with the Essential version that comes with Studio One Pro, they added a new algorithm called Universal. Now, what the Universal algorithm does is allow you to manipulate pitch-wise or time-wise polyphonic material. very nicely. You know, it's going to be different than if you would have done it with the monophonic version. So it's a better algorithm for working with polyphonic material.
Right on.
Let's look at that. So I'm dragging some audio here. All right, let's listen to it real quickly. Let's adjust some things here. There we go.
So you've got guitar, bass, piano.
Right, like a pad going on. So a lot of polyphonic stuff going on there. I'm going to go ahead and turn off Don't Follow because I don't want this to time stretch. I want Melodyne to do all the work here.
Okay.
All right. So let's just go ahead and Melodyne it. We'll hit Apple M or Control M if you're on PC. And we're going to change the algorithm to universal here so that it's using that new algorithm for adjusting the polyphonic material.
So now Melodyne has basically analyzed this, and from here I could just drag the whole thing and, you know, let's say if I wanted to, you know, take this whole bit of polyphonic information and move it up a whole step or move it down a whole step.
You very well could do that right inside the Melodyne editor. That'll allow you to do that, change the time. But what we're going to do actually is something that's totally cool that I love, and that's going to be extract the tempo map of this material. So,
wow.
Say for instance, you've recorded a song stereo-wise. It's a live mix of, you know, a band, and you wanted to take it back into the studio and, you know, extract the tempo map. Well, normally, you know, it'd take a little fudging the tempo here and there to kind of get that happening so you can get it on the click.
Right.
Well, Melodyne 4 actually makes it very simple for you. So here in the Melodyne editor, I'm going to switch modes here and get to my tempo map. And then I'll just zoom out a little bit.
Okay, so you can see you had some changes in tempo right there.
Right, so there's some change in tempo there. Pretty subtle, you know, it's kind of hovering around the 90 BPM area, or 80 BPM area. But what I'm gonna do is just to make this a little more visible for you guys, is I'm gonna just fudge some of the tempos.
So you can actually do your own tempo changes.
Yeah, exactly.
Just manually using Melodyne.
Yes.
That's pretty cool.
All right, so let's get out of that. Go back to there. All right, so I've adjusted the tempo map that Melodyne has already extracted out of this piece of audio. And we're going to impose that right into Studio One's
tempo track.
So Studio One globally is set for 130 BPM now, but we want it to match this piece of audio. So after I've Melodyned it, just a simple drag and drop right into the tempo track.
Oh my gosh.
Now imposes that tempo map right into Studio One.
So if you zoom in, you can see every single tempo change. That is so awesome. So this is really, really cool, especially for guys that are recording live. I mean, I do this all the time where, you know, I bring my RM mixer out to a gig and I like to record the band. But a lot of times what happens, I mean, we don't play with a click really ever live. But I might want to take a song, bring it back into Studio One and extract the tempo information so that I can, number one, be able to lock it to, you know, Studio One's grid, and then from there on, you know, I can do all kinds of stuff. But this just makes it really, really easy. I could take my individual multi-tracks, render a stereo mix just within Studio One as a track, and then analyze it with Melodyne, you know, drag and drop the tempo, and boom, I've got my tempo for that song.
Yes, definitely. Making it very easy for you.
That's fairly good. Hey, I noticed one other. Oh, you just did it. This this little zooming thing. This looks different.
Yeah, that's new for Studio One 3.2. So this is our new quick zoom. Basically, I'm holding down Shift and Option or Shift Alt on PC, and then the arrow tool now becomes a magnifying lens. And anywhere that I drag, any range that I select now, it zooms in on.
Okay, so with zooming before with Studio One, you used to have to either hit W and E to zoom in and out, or you could go to the top black area and click and drag. But now, if I wanted to just, if I hold down those two buttons and just select any piece of audio anywhere, it just zooms in right there.
Right.
So you can do multiple tracks as well.
Yeah, exactly. You can do multiple tracks. So anything within that range, that's what it zooms in on.
And then to zoom out, what do you do?
To zoom out, you hold Shift Option or Shift Alt, and you just simply click, and it's going to zoom out for you.
That's awesome. Okay, so the other new update with Studio One 3.2 is, of course, is coming with our remote app, the Studio One remote app. Now, we did a couple of things here. First of all, there's a new update for iPad Pro users.
Yeah, so native support for iPad Pro.
Right. And the other big one is native support for Windows tablets. So here's a Microsoft Surface Pro, as you can see, and now I can run Studio One remote off of a Windows tablet. That's pretty awesome.
That is pretty awesome.
Okay, so the next thing that this update does, because this is not just a big update for Studio One, this is also a big update for a lot of our hardware products, including the RM mixers, the AI mixers, and of course the Studio One 192 also gets some updates as well, just because they all use Universal Control UC Surface. So one of the big things that we've done is now we've added cascading for the rack mixers. So now if you had two RM mixers, you can basically connect them together and have a 64-channel audio interface. But what we've added with this new update is the ability to now have preamp control for the RM mixers within Studio One and hybrid fat channel integration. So what that means is that you would see the fat channel of all of those 64 channels in Studio One. You could control that and basically adjust it in the DSP, but you also would have it synced to the fat channel in Studio One.
Yes, definitely. So you don't have to, switch between apps. You have everything nicely, neat, integrated into Studio One. Your preamp controls, as well as your phantom power, phase inversion, that sort of thing, and your hybrid DSP fat channel control.
That's pretty awesome.
That is.
Hey, and some of you guys that are using the AI consoles are wondering, well, what about us? Well, we didn't leave you out in the cold. We also now have the hybrid fat channel integration for the AI mixers as well. So if you have a 3224 or 1642 AI, now when you adjust the fat channel on your mixer, you're actually adjusting it in Studio One as well, so that after you finish recording, you have the exact same sound on the playback as you did when tracking. It's really awesome.
Awesome stuff.
Very cool. So a couple more things we wanted to make a little call out to. If you're a Studio One user, you already know that we have a bunch of really amazing partners that have created content for Studio One to help people learn how to use the program. We have a lot of guys that do great videos, a lot of guys that do great support. Some of those partners I just want to call out that actually are launching new content today with us. First of all, Studio One Experts. So if you find them online, they have a great group on Facebook and of course a blog. Studio One Expert. They have a bunch of videos on the new 3.2. So if you want to dig in a little deeper, check that out. Also, there's a new tutorial available on Groove 3. And there's also a discount for Studio One customers for that, so you'll get an email about that as well. And then lastly is Obedia.com. So Obedia does an amazing support for not just Studio One, but all PreSonus products and other third-party products as well. And they've got a great offer right now that we're just passing along to Studio One customers, so you'll get to hear about that as well with the email. So we're going to show one more video from one of the Nashville producers that's been working with us on Studio One version 3.2. He's a really great guy and won a Grammy last year for the Macklemore record, and he's done a bunch of great projects. He came and visited us a couple weeks ago, and you'll see that video in a second. And then when we come back, we're going to take some questions from you. So check this out.
I'm Pete Stewart. I'm a producer, songwriter, and engineer out of Nashville. I mostly came to use Studio One because I was really frustrated using Pro Tools before that. I'd used Pro Tools for probably about 10, 12 years. Recorded a lot of albums I was really proud of with it. But for me, I felt like the more that time was going on, the less stable my setup seemed to get with updates. And then there was just areas that I felt like I could work faster if the platform that I was using would allow me to. Started using it mostly for songwriting demos to kind of just ease my way in and see if it was something that was going to work for me. And it didn't take long at all. I remember when the 30 days came up, I was pretty convinced I was going to go ahead and pull the trigger. There was a situation where I was exporting tracks that I had recorded as part of pre-production for an album I was producing. One of those songs was on Studio One. The other ones were all on another platform, and when it came time to export the tracks, it was lightning fast. I had spent the majority of the day exporting everything else and jumping through all these hoops, and that was the moment when I decided, okay, I think I'm on board. This is going to save me a lot of time. Transitioning to Studio One is probably the first time in over 12 years that I've ever switched platforms as far as what digital audio workstation I'm using. So, one of the reasons why I probably avoided switching for so long was just the fear of having to learn a whole new system and undo, 10 plus years of habits in the way that I record. But one of the great things about Studio One that I found right away is the way you can customize key commands. And not only that, but there being some built-in templates that fit into different people's platforms that they're used to. So for me, I first pulled up the Pro Tools keyboard shortcut setup, and it was great that there was certain ways that I just sort of have the muscle memory of doing things that are right there. I use Studio One in a pretty wide variety of ways. Well, some of the things I find exciting about the new version 3.2 would definitely include the enhancements to the Aero tool. A lot of Pro Tools users, is probably in the past one of the first things that they would maybe complain about or just notice wasn't the same, at least, is not having the Smart tool. So now Studio One has exactly what you would have been missing with the Smart tool. Having VCA faders in Studio One is huge as well. It's actually, to me, something that when you combine it with the way that you can already send however many channels you want to different buses and things, gives you an extra way to actually be creative with the audio if you want to, being able to make the VCAs do what you want them to do and then decide which faders you want to apply them to and try them out on however many channels you want to. It just opens up a bunch of possibilities that weren't there before. Another thing that I'm real excited about with Studio One 3.2 is the mix engine effects. It's one of those things where I think when people open it on their first bus that they use it on, your brain's going to automatically start thinking of ways you can really use it to shape your mixes. There's a ton of little things in Studio One that, to me, add up to make life so much easier and just allow me to work so much faster. To me, one of the things I've loved about Studio One since I've switched to it is just the more and more things that keep getting added like that to just keep you in creative mode, so you're not having to sit there and kind of remember trivial ways of working. You're just able to just kind of go, so that the DAW is eventually kind of just an extension of what you're wanting to create.
I'm Justin Bryant, and I'm Big Picture Music. I've worked for Sky, Discovery, Fiat, Audi, so lots of commercial projects, commercial music. I was using Pro Tools until about 4 months ago when I switched to Studio One. I went to an event for Studio One 3, and it was really difficult to ignore because there are so many time-saving things in Studio One that I decided I had 2 projects on the go. Two album projects, so lots of tracks, and I thought I should really try and do the next batch of tracks in Studio One and see how I get on, because it looks like it's going to save me lots of time. And I thought I'll probably take those stems back out and put them into Pro Tools to mix, because that's what I know. That hasn't happened. What's happened is the original tracks that I did in Pro Tools, I've taken over to Studio One, and I'm basically this week and next week mixing both those albums in Studio One. The things that really sold it to me were scratch pads and the way you can render out stems and buses. Because I need to, when I start a project, I need to think about how much overhead there is at the end of the project. So I need to know that I can do my cut downs very quickly and that I can render everything out, all the versions that I need to render out to my clients. What I found in Studio One 3, because I never used any versions previous, was that I would just keep tripping over new features, really nice new surprises that were already in the program. They're like Easter eggs, you just find them and then you just start using them straight away. There's no learning curve. Well, we've been looking at the mix effects, the console shaper, and listening to the results when that gets switched on. It's just ridiculous. It's really good, sounds great, and that would be enough for me to upgrade. The Smart Tool is terrific. That's a great time saver. VCAs are a massive time saver. I use VCAs all the time in Pro Tools, and I've been using a slight workaround just by selecting tracks in a group, but now I don't even need to do that, so that's going to be terrific. It's so much easier to get done what I need to get done. I've switched to this DAW painlessly. Just dive in, go for it.
All right, welcome back. So, wow, this has been a crazy, awesome day,
Yeah,
huh?
awesome. I'm really excited.
Yes, indeed. So I hope you guys have enjoyed what you've seen so far. We want to let you know that today, as of right now, Studio One 3.2 is in your user account. So all you have to do is go to my.presonus.com and, go in, log in. I imagine it'll be a little slow downloading today, so you might want to wait, or be patient with that because there's going to be a lot of people trying to get the new version. But again, if you are a Studio One 3 user, guess how much this update costs you?
Free?
Bagel! So we're really stoked about that. So no charge for the 3.2 upgrade for registered users. So also, if you are an RM, Studio Live RM mixer user, a Studio Live AI console user, a Studio 192 user, you also have a brand new version of UC Surface in your user account. And we have a brand new version of UC Surface for the iPad, Studio One remote for the iPad. It's been busy around here. We've been
very busy.
Yeah, we've been. This has been a major release for us, and I have to give a shout out to our QA team and our beta testers that have been just literally
thank you so much,
rocking it to make this day happen and all of this stuff come out for our customers. So we're really happy about that. Another thing that I wanted to, before we announce the winners and then we're going to take some Q&A, I want to also give a special shout out to the guys at Studio One Expert. Yes. After this webcast, go check out on Studio One Expert's site. They have basically put together a huge amount of content for version 3.2. So if you want to learn more and get kind of dig in more to what this update's about, please go check it out. Their URL is studio-one.expert. So studio-1.expert. Okay. Just Google them. You'll find them, I promise. Okay.
Not hard.
Exactly. So let's take some Q&A.
Awesome. What we got?
So we have Joey that wants to know, will my mastering tools work for projects created in 3.0 if I upgrade to 3.2?
Yeah, definitely. Everything that you currently do in Studio One now will still work in Studio One Update. So all of your songs, all your projects, plugins, mastering projects, that sort of thing, still going to work. These are just enhancements.
Right. Okay. Very cool. The other thing that somebody wants to know, Blambitty, what is the
Nice name.
difference? What's the difference between the Studio 192 and the RM16 as far as integration with Studio One? Okay, that's a great question. I get this question a lot because people look at the RM16 and they look at the Studio 192 and they say, what's the difference between them? Now, after today and after this new update, the RM mixers have gotten a big update as far as the integration with Studio One that they didn't have prior to this, and that is the hybrid fat channel integration, as well as being able to control the mic pre's, the phantom power, phase reverse, all of those things directly from within Studio One. So as far as the integration between the hardware and the software, they're both very, very similar now as far as you can control your fat channel DSP. The DSP that's running on the hardware, you don't have to necessarily open up UC Surface anymore to control that. If you're opened up on Studio One, you have control over your mic pre-gains, you have control over the fat channel settings, all within Studio One. So that's pretty huge.
That's going to be great for cascading.
Yes, and of course that's the other update that happened is when you cascade two rack mixers together, you can go all the way up to 64 inputs now. So that's really huge. Now, a couple of the other differences, because people want to know, well, what's different between the Studio 192 and the RM16? Couple of differences. They both have the Class A X-Max mic pre's that are under digital control. However, the sample rate on the Studio 192 goes up to 192K, and the max sample rate on the RM mixers is 96K. So that's one difference. The other difference is that the RM mixer is actually a mixer. So in other words, you can use it as a mixer without a computer completely. So you can hook up a wireless router to it and wirelessly control it without a computer hooked up. So, and it works completely standalone. Whereas the Studio 192 is an interface and it needs to be connected to a computer, but you can still control it wirelessly using an iPad. So that's another kind of difference. And then the last kind of maybe key difference is the expandability of the number of channels. The Studio 192 can be expanded to a maximum of 26 simultaneous inputs. The RM mixers will go up to 64 channels. Right. So you can do up to 2 RM mixers together. So an RM16 with an RM32 will give you 48 inputs, 2 RM32s will give you 64, and 2 RM16s would give you 32. So that's the main difference. Okay, let's go over some other questions. So another hardcover wants to know, is there a difference between VCA faders and faders that are just linked together or grouped together?
Sure. So before, when you would group faders together, all of those grouped faders would move together. If you move one, they all move together in relation, right?
Right.
But with a VCA, you can still have that same type of grouping behavior, but you still have control of each individual fader within that group.
Without having to unlink them.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Okay.
So that's one big difference.
And then a related question, Nick wants to know, what's the difference between using a VCA fader and using a standard bus, like, assigning multiple channels to a bus?
Sure, and you can use both of them together. The thing with the bus is that that's going to be a layer of gain staging as well as and summing as well. But your VCA is actually going to drive or control the channel output, so you can actually control the output levels of those channels going into the bus. So you can use them in tandem, and get certain effects.
That's a really good point. So a lot of times what I will wind up doing is summing a bunch of things like, let's say, drums to a bus, and I have a plug-in on that bus. Like, for example, now Console Shaper would be a great example of this.
Excellent example.
And the thing about it is that Console Shaper is, it's an emulation of an analog console. And think about it, when you're mixing on an analog console, how you drive the bus of that analog console will absolutely affect the sound. So rather than having to basically, push up multiple faders or that kind of a thing, that's where the VCA can actually drive that into. And same thing with if you're using, you know, dynamics on the bus. You know, the VCA fader will enable you to take all of those channels that are within that bus and drive them with one fader, up or down. And then they're all unlinked in the fact that if the snare's hitting it too hard, you can just come down with one without having to unlink.
Right.
Okay.
And definitely with automation, VCA faders will help out with that. So you have individual channels or tracks with automation, and then maybe you just want to adjust all of them together, so you would use that VCA fader.
Yeah, see, that's a huge time saver. Okay, another question is Sam wants to know what's the resource hit using the Console Shaper, and will the new Console Shaper plugin run using the DSP that's on board the Studio 192?
Sure. So the second part, no, it won't use the DSP. The DSP on the 192 is relegated for the fat channel processing only.
And in the reverb and the delay.
In the reverb and the delay. In terms of
the resource hit.
The resource hit, you have to understand that it's not going to be as significant as using other types of plugins where you would have to insert on each individual channel and then the bus.
Right.
So you're only inserting one instance of a plugin, and it's doing all of the work underneath. So as far as how I've been using it, I haven't seen a significant hit on my CPU. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very easy actually.
I've actually been using it the last couple of weeks too, and I'll also agree that I didn't notice any kind of significant. I mean, it's not near as intense as using a virtual instrument, for example. That's more of a or a reverb plugin or something like that that takes a little bit more resource. But Console Shaper has been pretty lean and mean for me. Okay, another question. Zook wants to know, asking questions about Melodyne polyphonic, using Melodyne polyphonically. How does that work in 3.2? So one thing I want to say is just to be clear, with Studio One Professional, we bundle Melodyne Essentials.
Yes.
Okay, and Studio One Artist, which is the second part of this, it doesn't actually come bundled with Melodyne, so you have to be on the professional version and upgrade to professional to be able to get Melodyne Essentials. Now, the enhancements with 3.2 with the new version of Melodyne does give you some extra capability with using polyphony. So can you explain what you get for free with the Melodyne Essentials and what is what you need to upgrade to a bigger level of Melodyne?
Sure.
4?
Yeah. So with Melodyne Essentials 4, you'll get that new algorithm called Universal. That's going to give you a better algorithm for pitch shifting as well as tempo shifting and tempo mapping. So it allows you to work with polyphonic material better. Now, if you want the direct note access, you can still do that, but you would have to upgrade to Melodyne Editor version, which you can still use in Studio One 3.
So you can analyze polyphonic data with the Essentials version, and you can actually, change the tempo, change the pitch. But if you want to take an A minor chord and make it into a major chord, then you have to have a bigger version of Melodyne, and they have an upgrade for that that Celemony sells. And I actually use the editor version, and it's killer. It's worth it. It's worth every penny. I think any Melodyne full user will probably agree with that.
Yes.
Nick was asking about Neve console emulations coming for the Console Shaper. So basically, Console Shaper is the very first basic plugin that comes with the new architecture, and there's going to be many more plugins developed not only by PreSonus but by other companies like Slate Digital, Softube, and Acoustica. And I am promising you that one of us is going to come out with, I'm sure, an emulation for all of the different consoles. So, and that to me is the most exciting thing about this technology is that all of these consoles had a vibe and have a sound.
Right.
I mean, a Tube console, for example, has a sound and a vibe, but wouldn't it be great to have a tube console, have all your vocals running through a tube console, and then turn the noise down? You know,
Right.
I mean, that kind of a thing
Yeah, definitely.
is something that would be great.
Hey guys, some people want to win some prizes.
Oh, okay. So, okay, cut to the chase. I got it. All right. Okay. So the prize. that was quite subtle.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's announce
Crazy.
the winners. Yeah, I could ramble forever. The winner of the RM16 AI is Reginald Woodard at blablabla.com.
Congratulations.
Reginald Woodard. Congratulations, RM16 AI. The winner of the Aris 44 studio monitors is Bunker Studio 2. Bunker Studio 2.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. And the winner of Lunch with Justin. Now, you know, how does this work? We are going to find a way to buy you lunch, and we're going to buy Justin lunch, and you guys can have a Skype chat and talk about whatever you want to and eat lunch together.
That's pretty cool.
That's cool if you know Justin. Justin is
very cool
a
guy.
cool guy. So,
Someone you want to know.
yes, and that winner is Natalie A. Sport.
Awesome.
All right,
Congrats,
Natalie.
Nat.
Congratulations. Okay, and I just want to also remind everybody that the next PreSonus webcast that we're going to have is going to concentrate on hardware-software integration. So I believe Dom and Justin are going to be back, and they're going to be basically showing you how hardware and software integration works with the Studio 192, with the RM mixers, and with the Studio Live AI consoles. So all of these are now really, really tightly integrated within Studio One version 3.2, and now you can control the hardware from the DAW in ways that you couldn't before. So we're going to show you some of that in the next PreSonus webcast. Stay tuned. We'll send you an email and some announcements on when that's going to be. And then also, just want to give a quick shout out to, again, our friends at Studio One Expert, and we're going to end, especially Marcus, who was kind enough to do a bunch of videos for us, and we're going to actually end this webcast with some more videos that Marcus did, and also, definitely go by and check out their website with more in-depth videos on the new release. And hey, most of all, thanks a lot for watching.
Thanks a lot, guys.
And have fun with Studio One version 3.2. We'll talk to you next time. See ya.